Planet. As always, this is a GoToWebinar and all attendees are automatically muted to optimize the quality of sound. And if you do have questions, please feel free to ask them either via the question box or the chat tool, and we will take care of those occurring in the meeting. My name is Jan Vierguts. I am the development lead for Just Planet, and let's take a look at what is new in this update. So one thing we did in this update is we wanted to extend of what we learned from developing the tablet client at the end of last year. And one of the major things there that was a very informational and useful tool we think is the Job Traveler. And so we wanted to export this and include this into the main client. We also improved the Job Traveler to show more information about all parts of the job and all tasks of the job, and allow instant access to information without loss of your current planning context. We also added the option to export multiple job travelers to PDF at once. So if you want to prepare your day's work and need to have this on print or as PDFs, there's an easy way to do that now in the main client. But the major thing we developed for this sprint was resource categories. What are resource categories? Or let's first talk about the general idea of this. Since basically forever, and what we currently have is the resource group view. Resource groups, as a quick reminder, are the skill groups basically into which you categorize your resources for planning purposes. And this resource group view visualizes all tasks of jobs that need those skill groups. But from what we've seen when working and talking with you guys and our customers in general, is that there are very often a lot of flexible resources, most likely human resources that have a lot of skills that they cover and therefore have to appear in multiple resource groups. The use of flexible resources and the use of a resource in multiple resource groups can easily lead to a lot of ghost bars in a given or in the resource group view in general. That is because as we draw each resource in every group it appears, we have to draw everything multiple times. So if you do have a high variety of resource groups with a lot of flexibility in the resources, you can still use, with the resource categories, the resource group concept 100% as before. It does not impact your scheduling at all. It's a purely visual and helpful tool that helps you to categorize multiple related resource groups into one resource category to heavily improve the performance of the resource group view by uniting and focusing and organizing your resource groups. But the resource category functionality is an option and is 100% optional. If you do not want to use it, it stays just as it was before the update. But if you activate it, we change basically the resource group view to a resource category view that, depending on your setup and the setup of your categories, at which we will take a closer look in a couple of minutes, will significantly help you improve the performance in the resource group view, but comes with a couple of deficits in terms of interactions, as with the loss of or with the focus on reorganizing of the resources and the resource groups, we lose information that needs to be there for specific interactions, but I will talk more about this when we take a look at the actual demo. Now, what are some use cases for this? For example, you have personnel being able to do a lot of varied work and therefore have them in multiple resource groups, just like we talked about before. What you could do, for example, is organize all your workers into one resource category, thereby eliminating the repeated rows from all of them and just have one line per worker. This allows you to focus on the actual workload of your personnel and, as I said earlier, will improve the performance of the related resource-centric view. Other use cases, for example, is if you do have a multi-stage setup for your workflow, but this is in general, when looking at your shop, one step. You could also simply organize a couple of resource groups that you need to have the different skills for that one step into one category to look at this more focused. An example of this you can see, for example, below. If you do have different skill requirements for particular tasks, such as you have a standard cutting, a complex cutting, and a very complex cutting, and each of them have less and lesser personnel capable of doing it, then you could still have those three skills as resource groups set up in your account and organize all of them under simply one category for the task cutting. This is a lot of theory, so let's take a look at how this works in action. So this is a standard, or my standard Just Blended account, and as you can immediately see, we are in the resource group view, and you see a lot of ghost bars. The ghost bars are signified by being a bit grayed out and do not allow any interaction at all. This is to signify that these are placements on this resource. For example, if we take a look here at this task on my worker 8, but it's not part of this resource group. And if we scroll down, and there you can see that this lags a bit because there is a lot of flexibility and therefore a lot of resource repeated, and therefore a lot of ghost bars. We can see down here, where is it? Here, on worker 8, this is my actual task, and so I still see this 3, 4, 5, 6 times in the plan, and that repeatedness causes us to have a drop here. Plus, it also necessitates you to basically look for where the original is to make any changes. Now, how can we activate the resource categories? First up, you go to Settings and open the Settings dialog. And there you will see a new option down below, the Use Resource Categories. So what you can do now simply is hit Yes, hit OK, let it work for a second. And what you will see is that basically nothing changed. And that is because if you do this for the first time, when you activate resource categories, every resource group will create its own category, as we do not want to basically just lump everything together and have you fill it out yourself. But we create one resource category for each resource group, which is why nothing changed yet, except for a couple of icons. For example, you can immediately see that you have now the categories activated because the resource group view icon got exchanged for the category view icon. And you will also notice that now in the update tab, you got a quick button for the Manage All Data dialog, bringing us to the management dialog for the resource categories. And there you can see what I just said. For every resource group, we have its own resource category. And let's do what we had as an example, a use case in the presentation first. So let's say we create and we want to focus just on our workers and create a resource category for that. Then if you go over to the resource groups, you will notice that there is now an additional column telling you to which resource category a specific group belongs. And since you can see the resources on the right, we also can immediately change this here to put every resource group that basically only contains workers in our new worker group. That was the wrong one. Sorry about that. This. And what we can also do now that we have a lot of empty categories, we can simply address this because we don't need to see empty categories. Removing all the unused categories from the plan, hitting OK, and let just Planet do its thing. So this gets now transferred to the server, distributed everywhere so everyone looks at the same plan, and we reach the following conclusion. As you can see immediately, we have a drastic reduction in complexity of the view by eliminating basically all of the ghost bars. Because we now have only one line for each resource, but still have them organized. And now, as you can see, since everything is a real bar, we have interactions on everything. And now let's take a look here over at this task. What you could do beforehand is easily switch resource groups per drag and drop by going to another group and letting it drop there. That is no longer possible in the resource categories views because, as I explained earlier, we do not have the information of which resource group you target anymore. But you can still set resource group constraints and, of course, time constraints. And if I start dragging now, you will see that we highlight every resource belonging to the same resource group as this task is currently in, showing you where you can safely drop this without any hassle. And if I do this and let this drop on my worker 9 down here, we will see that this now has its resource constraint with the orange point and is now on the correct resource as we wanted it to. And as you also can see is that this immediately got a lot cleaner and faster just by eliminating resource groups. And you can see that's basically through any interaction, including simply scrolling to the left and right or up and down. So I would highly encourage you, if you do have flexible resources that are used in multiple groups at the same time, take a look at this, make yourself familiar with it, try it out. It is something we really encourage you to do and really think that brings a great help and focus to this. So with this, thank you very much for your kind attention. I will stay in the meeting for the next couple of minutes if there are any questions coming in. Otherwise, have a great day and talk to you in the next webinar.